What's going on, everybody? It is Tuesday. That means it's time for that EFIN morning after show live call-in option available at 10 a.m. We will be joined shortly by the Adam Hulse, NFL writer for Sportskeeda. We're going to wrap up this show, wrap up your week 7. Let's get this thing started. What is going on, everyone? Good morning to you. It is week 7, that effing morning after show. It's time to wrap up week 7, get into week 6. Like I said, live call-in option available at 10 o'clock. We'll open the phone lines. We'll get the conversation started for you, and then we will invite you in. We are joined, as always, by the Adam Hulse. Adam, good morning. And how was your week 7?
My week 7 was great. My NFL team was off, so it can't be a bad week when your team is off. My fantasy teams all performed pretty well this week, so I'm happy.
Yeah, we got some things to talk about for sure. Last night, I mean, we could start there because it's fresh in our heads. Holy cow. I mean, we got a game. Niners on the ropes. I guess we shouldn't call them on the ropes. They've only lost 2 games. But Brock Purdy trying to make up for all those interceptions over the last 2 games. 3 in the last 2, which, I mean, really it's not, panic time. It's Purdy's coming back to earth. That's really what's happening here. In Cleveland, it made sense. Cleveland had the number 1 defense in the NFL. Minnesota has a horrible defense. Niners have a fantastic defense. And last night we just watched the Niners implode, and we watched the Kirk Cousins show. More on Kirk Cousins later. Did you catch any of it, Adam?
Of course, I watched the whole game. Look, you said it. Purdy's coming back to earth. Now, Purdy, I don't think he's a bad quarterback, and I don't think he's going to be a bad quarterback, but he's not going to be an undefeated quarterback with 0 interceptions like he started his career on that ridiculous streak. Let's not forget, he was a 7th-round draft pick. He was a guy that most teams wouldn't have even considered drafting because his skill set is not that great. His mental game is on point, right? He's a mental, cerebral type of quarterback, which is perfect for that Kyle Shanahan type of system, but he doesn't really have those physical gifts. And look, he didn't have his left tackle last night. Trent Williams was out. Deebo Samuel was out. So, the 49ers were not at full strength, but still pretty surprising win for the Vikings there.
Yeah, it was. Fantasy rosters rocked all across the land. A lot to talk about this week over the weekend. Before we get into that, let's get into the record watch. So record watch, the portion of the show, you guys know that we went through every team all season long. We went week by week, game by game, broke down everyone's records, and this is just kind of a chance to see how we're doing. And honestly, we're doing pretty good. This week I went 8-5. Would have liked to done a little bit better. Adam, you destroyed it. You went 11-2, and kind of about even this thing out. You actually took the lead. I'm 66-40 on the season. You're 67-39. I mean, you just nailed this week.
Yeah, I guess, in a week where I didn't even have to think about my Cowboys because they were on the bye week, maybe I was locked in on all the other stuff going on.
Maybe that's what it was. Lack of distractions.
Yeah.
was able to help fine-tune your thinking. So you actually have the lead by 1. Home teams are up now 56-50 on the season. They have solidly pulled ahead. But honestly, it was 47-46 for this week. Now it's 56-50. And we kind of touched on this last week. We did talk about it last week. We'll touch on it again real quick. Home field advantage, not the thing that it used to be, at least through week 7.
Yeah, I kind of agree and kind of disagree at the same time. I'll say what I said last week. I think it's the law of averages. The longer the year goes, the more weeks you get, the more games you get. That number will be closer to even with the home team on a longer timeline, always kind of having a slight advantage. Though I do agree that home field isn't what it used to be. Also that not all home field advantages are created equal. playing in Kansas City and playing in Jacksonville are not exactly the same exact thing in terms of, the crowd environment and the noise and like all that kind of stuff. And, so when it's teams that don't really have that advantage or games between teams that, don't really matter too much to the standings, like if you get Cardinals versus Bears, like who really cares like where the game is played? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So all of that in context matters. But for big time games in big spots with important teams, I still do think that home field matters a lot.
Well, we're going to find out as the season goes on who's right. I'm not going to say who's wrong because I will just see which take takes hold throughout the season. Let's go ahead and get into week 7 and talk about all the things. And there was a lot that happened. It's our weekly rewind here on the show. We talk about all the weeks or all the games that you guys got to watch, all the shenaniganry that took place. We had some good ones. We started off on Thursday with the Jaguars versus the Saints. Trevor Lawrence was not supposed to be healthy, so I did not play him, and it cost me for sure. Trevor Lawrence absolutely showed up, and they beat the Saints, who were supposed to have this great defense, but they were able to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a fade Trevor Lawrence spot for me, which, as you know, for me, that's very rare for me to be fading Trevor Lawrence. But
Absolutely.
let me just say, my Jags are on a roll right now. All that big talk that they did about the Jags before the season, they're starting to look as hyped up as I make them. They're on a nice little winning streak.
I've got Lawrence on really damn near every single team that I have, and I've for some reason gotten a lot of trade offers this week. Not sure what's up with that. Ravens destroy the Lions. I mean, destroyed them, and it was embarrassing. And the Ravens have a good deal. This is supposed to be a battle of defenses. The Lions had the number 1 rush defense in the NFL. Ravens, I think the number 3 overall, number 3 pass defense. It was one-sided from the jump. I mean, it was all Ravens all day.
Well, I mean, we said Brock Purdy is coming back to earth a little bit. Well, maybe the Lions are coming back to earth a little bit too. Still a very well-rounded, solid team, but I think they were playing above, what they're going to be for the season. They were looking like an arguable top 3 team entering this week. The Ravens just kind of, reminded everyone that they're still maybe a contender too if Lamar keeps playing the way he's playing, who is now firmly in the MVP conversation.
Oh, yeah. We've got other guys in the MVP. We're going to talk about the quarterback situation and how all that's playing out this year so far. But Lamar is balling out. He's made the top 10 5 weeks, 5 out of 7 weeks this year. And we talked about schedules. The Lions, had taken advantage of the schedule they had. They ran up against a real defense and maybe got a little exposed on what they are going to be. Falcons.
Maybe a defense we haven't talked about enough. This is arguably the best defense in the NFL this year. We've done a lot of talking about the Niners and the Cowboys and the Browns and how good those defenses are. And they are. But when you really look at the numbers of the Ravens this year, a case can be made that they're right at the top.
I kind of think they're maybe the most consistent. I would have said the 49ers before the last 2 games. Cleveland statistically is number 1, but obviously not showing it. They are definitely falling through when they need to show up. We'll talk about that game in a minute. I think, Baltimore consistently, and it's not to say that they just completely stop everybody, but they get it done. And so, when you got the game on the line, it seems like the Ravens are the ones that you can count on. I'm not completely throwing the 49ers out just yet, but the Ravens are definitely.
The Ravens are getting after the quarterback too, like by scheme and by design, which is interesting. They lose Wink Martindale, and now they're a better pass rushing team, getting rid of Wink, who's like the blitz master. Just interesting how that kind of played out.
It really is. Falcons edge out the Buccaneers. Kind of I don't know. I guess you would have expected the Buccaneers maybe to win. I don't know. The Falcons are getting it done. Daniel Ritter keeps landing on the top 10 list. He didn't make it this week, but he's got 3 trips himself this year. So, I mean, he's Bijan's basically disappeared. Kyle Pitts had some big catches. And the Buccaneers, are getting Baker Mayfielded, if you ask me, because you know how I feel about that.
Yeah, apparently Bijan had a stomach ache, some kind of sickness going on. I don't know. That was a very strange situation, but really my only takeaway from this game is it's just another reminder that the NFC South is awful. That
Awful.
division is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Look, I mean, the Panthers haven't won a game, so they're obviously not going to bounce back and win that division. But between the Falcons, the Saints, and the Bucks, I mean, it's anybody's guess who wins it at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll ease up a little bit on Baker because it's really Rachaad White who's letting this team down. Their run game's atrocious every week.
Baker's played pretty well. He's played pretty well.
He's doing okay. He actually finished at QB 11, almost made the top 10 list before last night's game. Commanders beat the Giants, snooze fest. I don't think there's really any big storylines here other than, Saquon can't do it alone. Raiders.
Yeah, who cares?
Raiders and Bears. Right. Raiders and Bears was interesting. Frodo shows up and takes the Bears to victory, and the Raiders kind of a dumpster fire without Jimmy Garoppolo. Not that they're fantastic with him, but without him, they're even worse.
Look, I mean, on a very, very, very short sample size, Tyson Bagent kind of looks the part. He looks confident at least. But look, we have to remember with Bagent that there's not a whole lot of film on the guy out there. I mean, he wasn't even a D1 college football player, and even his numbers in the lower division he played in were not exactly like unbelievably great all the time. He had, some good ones, some bad ones. So let's remember that once these defenses start compiling some film on Bagent and really, see what he's all about and learn his tendencies, that could come crashing down, but who knows? Maybe this is the next underdog story in the NFL.
Right game at the right time for him.
Yeah.
I think that's a good entry. But yeah, I mean, there was a point where, he was playing with all the confidence in the world, and you're like, oh no, quarterback controversy, which, that's what the media will do. Obviously, there's not one. Patriots pull out Belichick's 300th win over the Bills. The Bills defense. Oh, man, they got housed by the Jags. They got housed by the Patriots. You got beat by Mac Jones. Bills defense is in trouble.
When Mac Jones finishes as a top 10 quarterback, know your defense is having some major issues to allow that to happen. Look, I don't really know what's going on with the Bills right now. They're very hot and cold. Either they put up 40 points and blow teams out, or they lose. It's kind of what's going on like with the Bills this season. They've had weeks where they've looked excellent. They've had weeks where they look disastrous. Short week this week. They got to play the Bucks on a Thursday night. Maybe that's good for them. They don't have to sit in that loss with the Patriots for too long. They just get, right back into action right on Thursday, try to get that bad taste out of their mouth. They can get a win maybe and move forward.
Colts get absolutely robbed. FBI on scene, CIA, everybody. They got that game absolutely stolen from them. By the refs, and I don't like to blame refs, and don't get me wrong, if the Colts had more points on the board, the refs wouldn't have mattered, but the Colts absolutely got robbed during that game, so the Browns walk away with the win. Again, inconsistent number one defense in the NFL, but the Colts take it to them, and Josh Brown looking like, I don't know, Cooper Kupp or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be the most popular waiver wire guy this week, right? Josh Downs, like in any leagues where he's still available, he's probably priority one on everybody's list. And yeah, I mean, that Browns defense that we've been raving about every week basically allowed 40 points to the Colts. I mean, they got their win, so that's really all that matters when it comes down to it. But that was kind of a alarming thing to see.
It was absolutely crazy what it was. They let Minshew, the number one defense, lets Minshew get to QB3 on the week, 28
Stop
points.
Sleeping on Minshew. Don't sleep on him.
Don't do it. Boomer bust. But, yeah, I mean, he's there, right? I mean, Gardner Minshew, House is the number one. Jonathan Taylor got you RB7 this week, and we talk about the rookie Downs, man. Downs finishes at wide receiver 4. They just let Cleveland have it. That's what happened. Cleveland failed. They let them have it. That's what happens. Let's see. Steelers. My Steelers. Telling you that record. A double-digit record ain't looking so crazy now. They take it to the Rams, pull out a I'll call it an ugly win. Najee shows up at the end when he needs to. The defense finishes a game. They've been there, but they finally finished a game. And, the Steelers go into LA and walk out with the win. I hate to say I told you
That was
so,
a little
but I
phrase
don't.
that I didn't think we'd ever hear. Najee shows up. How about that?
Right,
I didn't think
exactly.
we'd hear that this year. And let me just say this, very fun matchup coming up this week between two teams that are very hot right now, the Steelers and the Jags. That is
Yeah.
a good measuring stick game for both of these teams. They're both on a roll right now. They're both winning games. So let's match up and see how that goes.
And this is the thing with the Steelers. I mean, they don't have anybody in the top nothing this week.
Yeah.
Pickens finishes at like wide receiver 19. Pickett, he's not in the conversation. Of course, the running backs are not in the conversation. Najee did make it to 13 this week, because he gets that touchdown. But, they just kind of have been team winning. Just, rally to the ball type wins. And a win's a win.
Steelers football, right? That's like, classic Steelers football. Find a way to grind it out. Keep the game close. Find a way to win in the end. Don't beat yourself. That's Tomlin. That's, Cowher. That's like just, to me, that's what the Steelers are. You always think defense, of course, with Steelers. Their defense not great this year. That's usually the staple of the Steelers is the defense. But to me, it's always also they grind. They grind, they battle hard, they keep games close and give them a chance in the end. It's why Tomlin's never had a losing record.
Another team that grinded one out in dominating fashion. Seattle manhandles Arizona as expected, but again, nobody anywhere near the top 10. JSN finally gets to play with DK out, finishes at wide receiver 17, Kenneth Walker at running back 19. Geno Smith, not a great game, finishes at QB 17, but they still dominate. Really, the defense showed up and let the offense, gave the offense the ability to make mistakes.
Yeah, nothing jumped off the page about what they did, but they got the job done. They got their win at home, and they move on.
Still loving Jordan Love. A lot of Green Bay Packer fans are not. They drop another one. Jordan Love comes back down to earth, really. The Broncos get that win. Not the way we thought it was going to happen, but they get a W.
Yeah, just watching Jordan Love play quarterback, it just looks ugly. It looks really ugly right now. I would not, be feeling inspired if I was a Packers fan. If I was someone invested in Jordan Love, he shows a lot of signs of a guy who's really not getting it. We have to remember that though he's a little bit older, he's kind of a rookie because he hasn't really played in any real games, but he's been there learning for a couple years. So, he's more than a rookie, but not much more than a rookie. It's hard to label what he is. So, he does deserve people to be patient with him because he is learning, and getting experience on the fly. But early returns do not look good.
No, it's. You look for the experience to kick in, over the next couple of years. But like you said, this is what it's supposed to be. It wasn't really fair that he started off so hot. It wasn't really fair to him. It wasn't really fair to the fans. Give him a chance to grow, give him a chance to learn, and next year we'll talk more about Jordan.
Well, it's also one of those reminders that I kind of mentioned, in the little Bajan thing that I said is once these D coordinators start to get a little film about the way you start and the way you play, they are so good at counteracting what you do. Right. That's why a lot of times we see these flash in the pan quarterbacks that have a few good games and then completely disappear. It's because they know how to scheme defenses to what you like to do. So once they take away what you like to do, the good and the great quarterbacks know how to then readjust after that. It's like a chess match, right? Yeah. They see what you're doing, they adjust. You see what they're doing, you adjust, and on it goes. And that's how the great ones get sustained, continued success, while the flash in the pan, they have no way of counteracting what the defenses are doing.
Well, I always say when you get a backup quarterback that comes in, look for that wide receiver 3 because that's who the backups get all their reps with. To them, that is their wide receiver 1. So when you see that backup quarterback come in, think about streaming that wide receiver 3 that week because it might work. This week, Sutton finishes at wide receiver 8. No one else really does anything. Jordan Love did make it to QB 12. But QB 12 this week was not necessarily that impressive with 16 points. Let's see. The Chiefs overcome the Chargers. We expected more from the Chargers in this one, but the Chiefs defense showing that they're for real. Chris Jones, the absolute difference maker. I think Chris Jones is in the defensive MVP situation conversation, if you ask me, because when you look at the couple games before he got there to what they've been able to do since he's been there, it's ridiculous how much of an influence Chris Jones has with that defense. But the Chiefs get it done. Mahomes and Kelsey go absolutely nuts, and fantasy roster's happy there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on Chris Jones. He should definitely be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation right now. And look, like you said something interesting with the Chargers, like we expected more out of the Chargers. Why do we keep doing this to ourselves?
I don't know.
Why do we always keep expecting more out of the Chargers? Like not just me and you, but like the whole NFL world in general keeps expecting the Chargers to do more, and they let you down every single time.
Well, look, Herbert's landed in the top 10 4 times this year. And that's with a bye. They get matchups and Herbert shows up, but when they have to face an actual team like Kansas City in this case, this is what you get. And the defense is actually playing way better than I thought that they would. I think the Chargers defense is playing really well. You just can't do anything against Kansas City when their defense is playing that well. Kansas City's offense, Patrick Mahomes, QB1 this week. Kelsey, obviously, tight end 1 this week. No one else really has to show up. Rice did have a decent game. He was there when Kelsey couldn't catch the ball or wasn't called upon. But, I mean, we talked about this all offseason. Everybody's talking about this all offseason. Mahomes and Kelsey, they just play street ball, and there's really not a lot of way to scheme that. You can't scheme street ball.
Yeah, like it's almost impossible to cover Kelsey because he's always off script. He doesn't really have like assigned routes that he runs for plays. Like it's amazing how well him and Mahomes are always on the same page. And look, this is something we've touched on a couple times too. Mahomes is going to catch fire at some point this year because he's Patrick Mahomes. Maybe this was the game that sparked it. Well, and let's remember too that this is probably the best defense that Patrick Mahomes has ever had during his career so far. This is probably their best defense. So when he catches fire, paired with as good as this defense is playing, this Chiefs team is scary. You're muted.
I don't know what happened. But yeah, 424 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's pretty lit right now, I'd say, after that game. So I think maybe he caught. We'll see if it goes out. Eagles beat the Dolphins really in kind of dominating fashion. I mean, there were flashes, but I did not expect that. We expected a game. I still say we got a game, but wow. I don't know.
Yeah, look, like the Dolphins have this very flashy offense, obviously, with all of the speed and all the high-flying things they can do. The concern may be in gritty, games against teams like the Eagles that can just smack you in the mouth and win in the trenches. Are the Dolphins built to win a game like that? Look, like the Dolphins showed life a couple times during that game. They competed until the Eagles kind of pulled away at the end. It never really felt like the Dolphins were going to win that game, though, right? When you were watching it, the Eagles kind of felt in control the whole time. That, to me, would be the concern for the Dolphins, is that as the year gets later and the games start to get lower scoring, late season in the playoffs, that's usually what happens. And you get, again, like these teams that can really just pound you at the line of scrimmage. I don't know if they can withstand that.
Look, Tyreek Hill showed up. He's still unstoppable. Finishes at wide receiver 3. And that was...
He's on pace for like 2,500 yards or something like that.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Jalen Waddle does catch all 6 of his passes, 6 for 6, just not a lot of yardage. Finishes at wide receiver 27. Look, Tua finished at QB 22. Mostert finished at running back 35. That defense for the Eagles, they showed up. They dominated that field all game long. They had Miami on the ropes searching, trying to find, never found it. Hurts, yet another trip to the QB top 10 list, has the most 6 times this year. It's week 7. Hurts been on the QB top 10 6 times. You know, I don't know. There's, you talk about the MVP conversation again. And last night, of course, we had the Niners and the Vikings. Vikings, I'll say it, shock the 49ers with a win. They were at home, so that counts for something. 49ers, they didn't look pretty. Defense all over the field. Kirk Cousins put on a clinic. Kirk Cousins, like I said, has been on the list 5 times out of the 7 weeks. He's balling out. I told you he's the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. There's a lot of people that think that. You don't happen to be one of them. That's okay. But 5 out of 7, top 10.
Yeah. You know, like he opened the year with those 3 consecutive top 10 finishes, and then his next 3 games were not nearly as good as his first 3 games, finishing outside of the top 20 in 2 of those 3 games. So this was the kind of bounce back game that he needed when we're talking fantasy. But I think even more so just for Kirk in general, right? Like the narrative is always that he can't beat good teams and he sucks in prime time. Well, he was damn good in prime time last night against a really good team. So kind of trying to change his own narrative a little bit. Now, look, I know he did it in week 7. People want to see it in the playoffs and in games that really matter later on. But let's just remember, too, the Vikings started 0-3. And now all of a sudden they're 3-4 and right back in that mix to compete for a playoff spot. So Kirk has them rolling, even without Jefferson.
And hey, Minnesota's running game still horrible. Still, San Francisco able to stop that. But Alexander Madison finishes at 34. Cam Akers finishes at RB 28. Changing of the guard here.
Let's remember Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell was with the Rams before he took the head coaching job with the Vikings. That's kind of why he acquired Cam Akers. He might like Cam Akers better than Madison, and that transition would not surprise me if it's happened because Madison's been very disappointing in that lead role.
Look, if you're low on the waiver wire this week, if you're looking to take a chance, if you got a deep league, look, you can get real sneaky and grab yourself some Cam Akers real cheap. And everyone will miss it when you. Yeah,
I mean, he holds some value. I don't dislike that play, especially in a week like this where there's no like waivers that absolutely need to be had. I mean, sure, like Josh Downs is like that top of the list guy for this week, but
he's not solid.
These middle weeks of the fantasy season, and as the fantasy season goes on, this is something like we've touched on before too. The waivers usually get weaker as the year goes on. Those first 4 weeks or so are usually when waivers are a lot more exciting because these players are a bigger part of their offense than you expected them to be. At this point now, it's usually just injuries or some other kind of major change that can make a big waiver emerge. So in a week like this and in this time, why not add Cam Akers?
I'm telling you, he's going to be a sneaky pick and he's going to pay off for some people. I really like it. And I'm probably going to try and do it myself a little bit. Not going to lie. Let's see. We are getting close to the 10 o'clock hour, which means we are close to the phone lines opening up. Couple things to mention. Jordan Addison finishes as wide receiver 1 this week. Fantasy wide receiver 1, thanks to Kirk Cousins, depending on your scoring format, of course. AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, the usual suspects up there. We talked about Josh Downs and the other rookie, Puka Nacua, make the top 5 list. So, the ball's getting spread around. The rookies are making a statement this year. I'm going to save this one for the Hulse top 10, but I want to talk about one based on what we're talking about. What is your takeaway after week 7 for the fantasy season or just the NFL in general, honestly?
For you mean the lower scoring in general for fantasy? Because that's kind of what I'm getting. That's been the theme for our, when we talk fantasy these last few weeks is that there haven't been a whole lot of jump off the page type of scores in really across all positions, right? But for me, it's still all relative, right? Like if there's only one guy who scores 30 points and that benchmark is kind of 20 and up, if you have one of those 20 and up guys relative to the week and the competition of what other guys are doing that week, that can be considered a huge week. Now, with everybody scoring 20 points, now a huge week is like 35 or 40 points, right? So we shouldn't get too hung up just on the hard numbers. It's more comparative to everything else and being above average as opposed to just the number itself. It's percentage above the median.
Let's get into the numbers real quick before we do the Hulse check. As we do every week, we kind of break down where everybody was sitting fantasy-wise. Again, Hurts makes the top 10 QB list. Again, Allen, Cousins, and Lamar follow up. Hurts has 6 trips to the list. Allen's, Cousins, Lamar have 5. Couple players at 4. This week, Patrick Mahomes finishes number 1 at 34. Lamar Jackson at number 2 at 33.9. So really they're a point off depending on your scoring format. The only QBs to get above 30, although Gardner Minshew at number 3 comes in pretty close with 28. The other QBs in the 20 run Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Kirk Cousins, who put on a clinic last night, Tyrod Taylor, and Mac Jones. Mac Jones hits the 20 barrier based on your scoring format. 9 and 10.
That has to be a typo, right? Mac Jones, that has to be a typo.
Not second time to the list this year. Second time. Derek Carr, Trevor Lawrence only needed 18 points to come in 9 and 10. The running backs this week. Top guy, 33 points. You know who it is, don't you, Adam?
Yes, I do actually. It is Deonta Foreman with 3 touchdowns.
Woo!
3 touchdowns. He won me a league. That's why I know it.
Outstanding. I love it. Calvin Kamara right behind at 29.3. Depending on your format, he may even broke that 30 barrier. 27 for Jamar Gibbs. Jamar Gibbs finally showing up for some fantasy owners. I wonder if he was actually in the roster. Might have been because of all the bye weeks. I think Jamar Gibbs probably made some rosters this week. And he paid off with 27 points. ETN. Travis Etienne makes the list yet again. Look, ETN has the most trips to the top 10. He's got 5 trips, 5 out of the last 5 out of the total 7 weeks. ETN has been in the top 10. He finishes at 4, 22.7. We always talk PPR this week. Christian McCaffrey still manages number 5 at 22 points. Gus Edwards, who went against the number 1 rushing defense in the NFL, ends up at running back number 6, 21.4. Fox said not to play him. Fox was wrong during the fantasy morning wake up, TSS fantasy wake up on Sunday mornings. I was wrong. I'll take it. Jonathan Taylor with 21 points. Cook at 19. Barkley at 18. Jerome Ford 17. Big fall off, really, from the top 3 guys. But ETN, again, sitting there for the 5th time this year. Wide receivers, we talked about Addison number 1, Brown Hill 2 and 3. Addison had 31 points. Brown had 29.7. He essentially had 30 points. Tyreek Hill had 25.8. Downs and Pakua and St. Brown all had 23. St. Brown in the loss, just kind of catching balls and not doing much with them. But it elevates the fantasy score, and that's what you want. Mike Evans actually finishes at number 7. Cortland Sutton at 8 with 19. Kirk also in the 19 club. Christian Kirk, and that's what we're going to get into in the Pulse, at number 9 with 19 points. And Josh Palmer edges up at 18.3. And that is your, I guess, where they at inside the numbers, whatever you want to call it, for week 7. It's time to check the pulse of the NFL. We do that every week during the Fantasy Hulse Check. The Hulse Check this week brought to you by TSS Fantasy Waiver Wire. The Waiver Wire will be on tonight and every night, Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Fantasy Sports Core channel. Dr. Miller joins the show every week for his house calls, let you know about the injuries. You'll find out about Week 7 flops. You'll get the Thursday night preview and more on TSS Fantasy Waiver Wire, Tuesdays, 9 p.m. on the Fantasy Sports Core Network is really what it is. Again, you guys can call in right now and tell us about your fantasy week. And before we do that, we will, or as we wait for your call, we'll do the fantasy Hulse check where we kind of just get kind of a rapid take from Adam Hulse. He has no idea what I'm about to throw at him, but he's going to give us his take on what I give him. I'm going to start with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I brought up Kirk. We've talked about the fire that Lawrence is on. Ridley living up to number 0 that he wears at the beginning of the season. He said he was him. Ridley said, I am him. In week 1, it sure looked like it. It hasn't looked anything like it since then. Give me your take, Adam.
Well, first of all, I want to know what happened to all those fantasy experts saying that Travis Etienne was going to be a disaster this year. He was going to fall off. And all those people during draft season that say Tank Bigsby is a must draft because he's going to be the RB1 for the Jags by mid-season. Those people were very loud before the year started. I don't know where they are now because I haven't heard them in a while. And when it comes to Ridley and when it comes to Kirk, the Jags struggled at the beginning of this season. Though Ridley played well, that week 1. When the Jags started struggling, to me, it looks like they went back to what made them successful last year. Let Kirk run his routes, which he's very good at doing. Trevor finds him on those crisp routes that he runs. Run the ball with Etienne. And another guy that we haven't even mentioned who's having a fantastic season, how about Evan Engram? He finishes among the top 10 tight ends every week in fantasy, and he has been a staple. He has been quietly one of the most important parts of the Jaguars' success this season. So I love what the Jags are doing right now. Go what made you good last year and stop forcing the ball to Ridley like they were doing when they were struggling.
We can't do a pulse check without talking about the San Francisco 49ers. Dropped 2 in a row. They faced a tough defense in Cleveland, and they were in Cleveland. But they go to Minnesota on Monday night. And Minnesota is definitely not known for their defense. And honestly, other than Kirk Cousins, I don't know if you'd say they're known for their offense. Honestly, I think Cousins is kind of sneaking by. I don't think people realize that Cousins has made the top 10 list 5 out of 7 weeks this year. But what's going on with the San Francisco 49ers? It's only 2 games. The ship's not sinking, or is it?
I mean, it is only 2 games, and they haven't been at full strength in either of those 2 losses that they have with the injuries to Debo, to Trent. Last week, McCaffrey had to leave early. Now, that's not making excuses. I think more so what it is what we talked about earlier in the show, and it's that Brock Purdy is coming back to earth. He's not a top 5 quarterback. He just doesn't have the talent and the skill to be that type of player. He can be a very, very good player, especially on that team with those weapons, with that coach. We talked about how cerebral he is as a player. But I think right now it's time for Shanahan to kind of readjust again a little bit, redesign the offensive game plan just a touch, because Purdy has considerably cooled off from what he was. Shanahan's great at doing that, though, right? He's one of the best adjustment head coaches in the NFL. So I think the San Francisco 49ers will be fine, but things might look a little bit different about the way they run the offense over the next few weeks.
AFC East. Patriots, Belichick gets his 300th win, but what really happened this week is that Miami lost. Mm-hmm. They had a chance to gain some ground because the Patriots took out the Bills. And other than Miami's offense, honestly, because the Patriots took out the Bills, because Miami's lost, look, I'm not going so far as to say the Jets and the Patriots are going to come out and win this division. What I'm saying is this division is not looking as strong as it was supposed to be. And I understand what Miami's offense is doing, but we've seen that Miami's offense can be tempered. They can be slowed down. They can be beaten. And so this division was supposed to be Miami. It was supposed to be the Bills. They were both supposed to be there at the end. And I think they will be, but not in such dominating fashion. I don't know. What do you take out of the East?
Yeah, there's some concerns now with the Dolphins, some of them we touched on. You mentioned some of them right there, but, they also got smoked by the Bills. So like there are two opportunities to play a very good team that's supposed to be a Super Bowl contender in the Bills and the Eagles. They lost both of those games. And most of their high flying, crazy offensive numbers have come against far inferior teams. Now, look, I don't care who you're playing. When you put up 70 points, that's impressive, whether it's the Broncos or the Eagles. Okay. 70 is impressive no matter what.
Yes.
But they've looked very different against some of these tougher teams. And even, a Bills team that has not been so great this year either. So my takeaway from this week, look, the Patriots are not going to be there. They're just not good enough. Okay. Like Belichick got his 300 win. They had a good week. They are not going to be there. But I think this was a great week for the New York Jets. They were off this week and they saw the Bills and the Dolphins both lose. Right? Bills struggling a little bit, Dolphins struggling a little bit, and the Jets get to play the Giants this week in a winnable game. And if they win that game, they're kind of right in that mix all of a sudden when you look at the standings and look at the records.
And that's what I want to get to on the last pulse check. Every division in the NFL, with the exception of the AFC West, Chiefs pulling out fast and early with a 3-game lead on the Raiders.
Surprise.
Big surprise. Every other division has at least 2 teams within 2 games of each other. Most of them have 3 teams with that. I will run through it real quick. The Dolphins have 5, Bills 4, Jets 3. AFC North, everyone's still in it. Everyone's within 2 games. We expected that. Jags still have the Texans and Colts breathing down their necks, only 2 games back. You get into the NFC. As we expect in the NFC East, Cowboys are 2 games back. Commanders not out. They're 3 games back, but we're doing the 2-game back thing. Vikings are 2 games back of the Lions. Buccaneers and Saints 2 games back of the Falcons. We talked about everybody's kind of in that one because they all suck. The Panthers are not really anymore. And then in the NFC West, you've got the Niners sitting at 5, Seahawks and Rams within 2 games. We're only in week 7, so 2 games is not a huge thing, but is this where we start to really see teams pulling ahead, or is this kind of how it's going to be the rest of the season?
I think this is kind of going to be how it is for the rest of the season, and this is why we love the NFL so much, right? It's so competitive, and like this modern version of the NFL, it feels like it's getting even more and more competitive. Like most of the quote unquote bad teams are not so bad anymore. Like even look at a team like the Cardinals who aren't winning a whole lot of games, but they're competing in just about every game. Even the Bears, like teams like that. And sure, like the Chiefs, the Chiefs are going to be the Chiefs, but every season in the NFL, we kind of see down the stretch, like weeks, 15, 16, 17, couple games left, and there's like 10 to 12 teams in each conference still alive for those wild card spots and for those playoff spots. And the last week of the season sometimes has multiple games that are going to be deciding spots in the playoffs. Like it's crazy how competitive it is. That's what makes it so fun. And it's the only sport, in my opinion, that every game, win or loss, truly matters a lot. Like a real lot. Like losing one or winning one that you should or shouldn't have can truly change your entire season. You can't say that about other sports because of the longer season and how many games there are. In football, every game truly does matter.
It really does. And that's the pulse check, everybody. That's how things are looking around the NFL, according to the Adam Hulse, NFL writer for Sports. You got the little number down there if you guys want to call in. We'd love to hear from you. One day someone's going to call in, Adam. It's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. We're going to get an
Hey, we've been getting some text-ins. We've definitely been getting the text-ins, but not the call-ins.
That's all right. The calls will come. Until they do, look, it's time to really get into Week 8. We'll start with the waiver wire. I I have to kind of make the waiver wire still sponsored by TSS Waiver Wire. TSS Fantasy Waiver Wire every Tuesday night is going to be on tonight at 9 p.m. Dr. Miller on there talking about the injuries. They're going to start breaking down Thursday Night Football in Week 8, and that's what we're about to do, honestly. So I'll bring up TSS Fantasy Waiver Wire again as we kind of look at some of the waiver choices you're going to have this week. We talked about Josh Downs is probably going to be on that list. He's going to be up there. I said, really, I think you need to go ahead and grab Cam Akers while you can. Put him on a stash if you got room, because I think he's going to be a great – I think he's going to take that role. Who else do you got kind of coming in on the waiver wire this week?
Well, I mean, if Kareem Hunt's available in your league, you have to add Kareem Hunt right now with Ford likely to miss this week. Apparently, early reports are saying 1 or 2 games. Hunt has also, kind of increased his usage in each of the last few games anyway. And now with Ford out, if you can get Hunt, definitely get Hunt. I think Darrell Henderson is a decent ad for the Rams. Like, there was a lot of, talk about Zach Evans possibly being that guy. As the week went on, it sounded more like it was going to be Royce and Henderson. And watching that game, it looks like it's going to be Henderson. McVay's going to go with the guy he's most familiar with, most comfortable with. So Henderson, not a bad ad. And if you want a really deep one, why not for wide receiver? Speculative, why not add McCole Hardman? None of the Chiefs receivers have really stepped up in a big way at all this year. We keep waiting for one of them to kind of emerge. The Chiefs went back out. They retraded for Hardman, brought him back in. Look, he only had 1 catch this week, but, he was only here for a couple days. That's fine. He's a guy that Mahomes is comfortable with. Yeah. So maybe Hardman is going to be the leading receiver for the Chiefs the rest of the way, minus Travis Kelce, of course.
Of course. I don't know about that. I just think I just can't have any faith in that Kansas City wide receiver room, period. DFS wise, sure, I can see, trying to take a place. Scantling, of course, I think was number 1 if it wasn't Rice this week. So, I mean, I get it. But I just feel like it's you're just chasing when it comes to Kansas City. You can't. They're going to throw to whoever's open, and it's not going to be the same guy every week, in my opinion. I don't know. That's just how I feel about Kansas City. So one of us has got to be right. It's probably Adam.
I said it was a deep one. Like, I'm not making him priority. Like, don't run to go get him. But, if you're having injury problems and bye week problems and you're in a deeper league and, you kind of need a guy that you're hoping can maybe emerge, there's a lot worse choices that you can make than McCole Hardman.
A lot of talk out there in the waiver wire world about Roschon Johnson, if he's available. There's talk out there. I don't know. I agree with you. I don't know that there's anything huge this week. The nice thing about this week, 0 bye weeks. Everybody plays. No bye weeks this week. Weird to have in the middle of the season, but we just had 7 teams on bye weeks, week 8. No bye weeks. You get full run of your roster. Week 9, you'll lose your San Francisco players and your Jacksonville players and your Detroit players. That's really about it for week 9. 14 weeks until week 13. Week 13 is going to be another big week, but all manageable this week. Nothing to manage as everybody plays. Let's go ahead and get into this week's games. I should probably make a graphic for this, but let's get into week 8 fantasy. I guess expectations, plays, starts. We go game by game. Week 8 Thursday night, we got the Buccaneers at the Bills, and obviously this game looks a lot different than it did a few weeks ago. So I guess Buccaneers, the way the Bills defense are playing right now, I guess the Buccaneers get a little more, you can lean a little more towards playing your Buccaneers, except Rachaad White. Don't ever play that guy.
Yeah, and, a name for the Bills that maybe we should have thrown in our waiver wire conversation as well if he's available, Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah,
he has stepped up
he's out there.
in recent weeks. And Dawson Knox, it was just announced that he's having wrist surgery this week. His timetable to return is unknown, but he's going to be out at least a few games, you would assume, if he's having surgery on his wrist. So Kincaid's already been kind of rising up in his production, and now with Knox out as well, Kincaid's available. He's a pretty good tight end.
We don't talk about tight ends because it's just such a volatile
Yeah.
position as Kelsey and kind of everyone else
Mhm.
this season. But Dalton Kincaid did finish at tight end 7 this week, caught all 8 of his targets. 8 targets. That's pretty good. It's pretty good
Yeah.
for a tight end.
Mhm.
I think only Hawkinson and Kelsey got targeted more this week. Njoku got targeted 9 times, but he only held him 5. So 8 for 8. Anytime a receiver catches all their passes, I'm not even really concerned so much if it's 5 passes, 8 passes, 12 passes. If you go 100% on your catches, that perks my ears up. And like you said, without the competition now, Kincaid's been hurt. Kincaid's been on the injury roster all year. And so if he's back, he's healthy, he's 100% on catches, he's obviously getting targeted. Again, maybe a good ad this week. I am on board with the Dalton Kincaid ad on the waiver wire this week. If that's where you're looking, if that's how your league's set up, where the tight end might help you in the situation. Again, not your primary concern probably, but another steal that you might be able to get. Always play Allen, always play Stephon Diggs. If you've got Baker Mayfield, you're in that super flex league, you might be able to play him this week because the Bills defense not doing well. Big game for the Bills, honestly. This is a huge game after losing to the Patriots. They need to win this one. Eagles at Commanders. We get NFC East competition. Eagles coming off a big win. They go to the Commanders. Commanders got an awesome defense. Howell has been on the top 10 list, I think, 3 times this year. You've always got Scary Terry to deal with. Okay, I'm trying to pump it up here. The Eagles are going to dominate this game. Play them all.
Maybe not so fast on that one. I'm going to say it right now. I'm putting the Eagles on upset watch this week in Washington against the Commanders. Let's remember the Commanders beat the Eagles last year. Okay, so they have found a way to beat this team very recently, and the Eagles are coming off of one of those situations that we talk about sometimes. Big hype game on Sunday Night Football against another Super Bowl contender. All of the Alabama versus Alabama storylines going around, not just with the quarterbacks, but it felt like half the players on the field were from Alabama in this game. Very emotional type of situation. This could be a classic letdown spot in a game that the Commanders are probably going to care a lot more about this game than the Eagles. The Commanders are playing it at home. The Eagles are coming off of a very emotional win. This is the kind of game that really could be a letdown spot.
There you go. Upset watch by the Adam Hulse. Eagles dropping to Washington. Could it happen? Like you said, it happened last year. Washington is at home. I mean, they don't play absolutely horrible. They just get beat. They're 3-4. I didn't expect that much. Again, Howell has been on the top 10 list twice in the past 3 weeks. I mean,
upset of the week.
Upset of the
Mark
week.
it.
There you go. What do you guys think? Let us know. Put in the comments. Give us a call. Number's right down there, 757-598-EFIN.
And when the Eagles win by 3 touchdowns, you can call me out on it next week.
It could happen. It could happen as well. Let's see. Saints at Colts. I'm liking my Colts players in this game. Josh Downs, I don't think he's going to perform as big as he did this week, but like you said, don't sleep on Minshew. The Saints defense, I don't know what happened. They started off hot. They got holes all over the place. I like Colts players. I like JT. Saints players, I've been telling you guys for weeks, don't play Michael Thomas. I'm going to say it again. Don't play Michael Thomas. Taysom Hill, big name on the waiver wire this week. Because they have to use him at quarterback. They got to use him to run the ball. It's getting to that point. Carr does make the top 10 list again this week. He's been on there a couple times. This actually could be a decent game, and I like the Colts at home. But fantasy player-wise, yeah, Kamara, steady on the top 10 list since he's been back. This could be a nice fantasy game here.
Yeah, I mean, this was a game that a couple weeks ago, if I were to see it, I would say avoid everybody in this game. Like, I wouldn't be too excited to really play too many fantasy guys at all. But the way that, the 2 defenses have played lately, especially the Saints defense with how much they've regressed in recent weeks, and it being in Indy instead of New Orleans, I agree with you. This is a game that you can fire your guys up.
Yeah, I like DFS here. DFS, you're going to get a lot of value so that you can get a couple key players out of that game as well. I mean, you might put in Gardner Minshew as your quarterback. I don't know. It might be other choices, but I'm just saying value-wise, Minshew might be worth it. Jags at Steelers. We talked about the importance of this game. This is going to be a big game. It's going to have a lot of repercussions as the season goes down. And honestly, I think the Jags have the advantage on offense. The defenses match up really well if the right Jags defense shows up. To me, this is going to be decided by not the dominance, but the effectiveness of one team's defense over the other. The defense is going to have to be effective, and that's what the Steelers have kind of been lacking. They've been able to get back there, but they hadn't been getting the sacks. They were forcing rushing the passer, but they weren't able to finish. And now they're kind of putting it all together. This could be a really big game fantasy wise. I don't know if I want to really rely on people here. I guess you have to play Lawrence. ETN, again, 5 trips to the top 10 list this year. So I guess you play those guys, but that's really hard against the Steelers defense.
Yeah, I mean, my gut tells me that this is going to be a low-scoring, grinded-out kind of game, which, as I said earlier in the show, those kind of games often favor the Steelers. They find ways to win those games a lot. I feel like it's going to be kind of a defensive battle and not a whole lot of offense in this game, which is a tough spot. Because if you have Jaguars, if you have Kirk, Ingram, Etienne, Lawrence, like you're probably going to be starting them, because they probably still are your best options, but this could be a lighter scoring week for them. And then when it comes to the Steelers, I mean, you're starting Pickens. He's hot right now, right? And Deontay Johnson looked good in his first game back. So you're probably starting those two. So again, like both these teams kind of have those guys that are most likely in your lineup this week, but like I wouldn't feel great about any of them. Like this is not a DFS game for me. Let's put it that way.
To me, the big question here is Jaylen Warren. Do I start him? Najee obviously, got the touchdown, got the toddy this week, but Jaylen Warren has kind of been the guy. He's definitely the pass catcher. I don't know. That one's tough. It's going to be a good game, but you're right. I don't know fantasy wise. Fantasy wise, you have to play them because you have big names, but I don't know if you're going to feel wonderful about it. One game you might feel pretty wonderful about is the Texans and the Panthers. Texans at the Panthers. I mean, I like my Texans players here because they've been showing up fantasy wise. I like Nico. I like Stroud. Don't ever play Dameon Pierce. He's worthless. For on your fantasy roster for the Panthers. Of course, you got to play Thielen. If you don't play Thielen, if you got to play Thielen and you don't play him, just don't be in my league. Just get out. There's a couple players. I'm not saying everybody. I'm not saying playing everybody, but I'm saying there's been some consistent starters, and Texans at Panthers is probably a place that you can go ahead and fill some spots, fill some flex spots, etc.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, you kind of said it. Like, I'm starting Stroud, Nico, and Thielen. There's nobody else that I'm really too excited to start. But, hey, I mean, if you're looking for a streaming defense, Texans defense, maybe?
Maybe. Yeah, why not? Good value there for DFS. Could afford you some bigger name players, like some Dolphins players who face the Patriots. Patriots come to Miami this week. Look, I got it. Patriots beat the Bills. Oh, Patriots are better. They're not... The Bills defense is not playing like the Dolphins defense is, and I understand the Dolphins had a hard time stopping Philadelphia. Philadelphia is one of the absolute best teams in the league. They've done pretty well against everyone else. They're not unscorable. They're not a wall. You can definitely score on the Dolphins defense, but watch the offense run it up in this one. Maybe not 70 points. Bill Belichick always has something for the Dolphins, but I think your Dolphins players are safe this year. I don't think they're going to be the top scoring guys this week, though.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably not going to be the top scoring guys, but this game's pretty simple. Start your Dolphins. You shouldn't even be rostering really any of the Patriots at this point. So pretty straightforward for fantasy decisions.
People like Kendrick Bourne. There's a lot of people in the fantasy community that like Kendrick Bourne. He's kind of emerged as the wide receiver one, obviously with Juju out.
I think his value for rest of the season kind of holds more if he does get traded at the deadline. He's one of those names that has a little bit of buzz. That could potentially be dealt. If he gets dealt to the right situation, that's really going to determine what his value is for the rest of the year.
Falcons, Titans, I don't like any of it because the Titans defense is good. But the way things have been going, I got to say, start Ritter. in a super flex. He's not your starter anywhere, right? He's not your number one guy. But if you're in a super flex, I like Ritter. Ritter's made the top 10 list 3 times in a row. The Titans is a good spot for him to do it. Kyle Pitts is stepping up a little bit. Drake London is finally showing up. I mean, Drake London is giving you fantasy points. I don't see why he won't get you fantasy points again. Again, not the top guys, but if you got spots to fill and you got Drake London, your super flex, I'm okay with Ritter. I'm not confident with Henry at all anymore. Period.
No, yeah, and look, the Falcons' defense has quietly been very good this year too. They've been good against both the run and the pass, very under the radar. They are playing super solid defensively. I agree with you on London, but I'm actually, I think, a little higher on London this week than you are. I like him this week. He's been playing well. The Titans' defense is always good against the run, usually not so good against the pass. And let's remember, they just traded away all-pro safety Kevin Byard as well. So that's going to open up maybe even more passing lanes in their defense. Them trading away Byard kind of says that they're looking at being sellers at this deadline, right? Like, you don't trade away one of your best defensive players and one of your leaders and a guy who has been for years for your team if you think that you're going to be competitive. So again, this was brought up a few weeks ago. I said it then. Watch Derrick Henry at the trade deadline. I think he is going to be dealt.
There's another one for you. Derrick Henry going to get the trade. I'm not sure if it's advantageous at this point for the Titans to do that. I just
look, it's a contract year. It's a contract year. He's going to walk at the end of the season anyway. So they're not going to give him another contract extension. They drafted Tyjae Spears for that specific reason because they knew that this is the last year with Derrick Henry. And Tyjae's been getting a little more touches each game. They just traded away Kevin Byard. Look, if I'm reading between the lines, Derrick Henry is going to be traded within the next week or so.
Read the tea leaves, everybody. That's what Adam Hulse says. Derrick Henry might be on the block and might be wearing a new uniform in a couple weeks. Give us a call, 757-599-EFIN, as we roll into the bonus minutes of the show, going through the schedule, talking about week 8. And I'll tell you what else about that game, about the Titans game and the Falcons. You brought it up. Falcons sitting at number 12 for both rush defense and pass defense, both number 12 in the league in those numbers. So like you said, quietly getting it done, quietly keeping themselves in games. We've seen it over the past couple weeks. So, don't
look, the old school formula, right? Run the ball and play defense. And that's what the Falcons are doing well this year. And it's why they're competitive and they're going to be in the NFC South division race.
We had New Orleans coming out on top there. Falcons might give us a run for our money on that one. Vikings at Packers. The Vikings are on fire right now. And Aaron Jones is not healthy. Dylan actually out-touched him, out-carried, outscored him, did everything. Maybe another week will give Aaron Jones more time. CMC was able to make the top 5 this week. I don't know if it's enough. The Vikings, like I said, they're just on fire right now, and I don't think the Packers can stop them. Even at home.
Yeah, Vikings are rolling right now. Packers in disarray, kind of like you said. I expect the Vikings to keep rolling, even though, the Packers' passing defense is very good. They're much worse against the run than they are the pass, and the Vikings can't run the ball. So maybe that's, what would give Packers fans optimism on this one. But, yeah.
I'm rolling Watson one more time. I'm still saying start.
He's hurt again now.
Does he hurt again? So
he might be hurt again.
He might be hurt again.
Apparently he hurt his knee on the last play of the game. I mean, this guy.
Right. You're right.
That same leg has had all of the injuries: the knee, the thigh, the hamstring. There's an issue with one of his legs because it's been multiple different injuries to that same leg. So if he hurt that surgically repaired knee on that last play of the game, I wouldn't count on him playing this week.
So I look at Daubs then, because Daubs has done very well in a fill-in role. I'm rolling Aaron Jones as he's had another week. He'll have another week to get healthy. And honestly, after last night, I'm playing all my Vikings. I'm playing them all. I was already playing Cousins, but Addison, I might, again, I'm gonna make a run at Akers this week. and he may make it into my roster. I don't know. Packers not a great defense. Rams at Cowboys, at your Cowboys. Rams coming off a loss to the Steelers. Their passing game is good. Their passing game is still good. The rookie showing up. Cooper is doing well, very quietly, but doing well. That Cowboys defense has had a week to rest, a week to study film. I don't like the Rams in this one at all.
Yeah, I mean, I expect my Cowboys to roll in this game. I think the bye week does have a lot to do with that. I think this is a good game for fantasy football, though. I mean, you're obviously starting Kupp. You're definitely starting Puka. You're definitely starting your Cowboys. Fire them up.
Yep. Jets at Giants. It's so silly because these teams are not good. The Jets defense is fantastic. I mean, play the Jets defense, of course. But you can still sneak some fantasy points in DFS in this game, by grabbing a Garrett Wilson or something like that. You can find a little value. I don't like any Giants. Honestly, Garrett Wilson's maybe the only guy. I'm running through it in my head. Garrett Wilson's really the only guy, only in DFS. I'm not even playing him in fantasy. Giants defense is absolutely horrid, but they've stepped up at times, and it's the friggin' Jets, man.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants defense has played a lot better over these last couple of games than they started the season. For me, I'm not as high on Garrett Wilson this week. There's two names that I like in this
him
game.
For value. I'm just saying so I can get someone, so I can get a Tyreek Hill. Maybe I'll get a guy.
I like Breece Hall this week. Like if I'm playing a Jet, the guy I'm looking for DFS, I'm going Breece Hall. And a sneaky good play from the Giants, I think, is Darren Waller. Darren Waller has woken up. He's getting a lot of targets lately. And as good as that Jets defense is, one of their weaknesses has actually been against the tight end. They're in the bottom 10 right now and allowing fantasy points to opposing tight ends. So with Waller coming up lately and that being that one weakness of the Jets defense, he could be a sneaky good DFS play as well.
Look, Darren Waller has made the list the last couple of weeks. Darren Waller number 2 this week, caught 7 of 8. I like those numbers. I like those high percentages. Finds the end zone, 22 points this week. Darren Waller, a fantastic pick. And you're right about Breece Hall. Not sure how I overlooked him since I have him on one of my rosters. But Breece Hall, yeah, I like Breece Hall a lot too. Browns at Seahawks. This should be a good one. On paper, is supposed to be, except for the fact that Watson's probably going to come back. And so he'll screw it up. The Browns defense not playing fantastic. But honestly, the Seahawks offense isn't playing fantastic. I think this is a situation where fantasy-wise, I don't think I want to play anybody because I think this is going to be kind of a crappy game for both.
I agree. I think it's going to be an ugly, low-scoring, defensive type of game, which honestly, that's the way that both of these teams kind of prefer their games to go, right? They want lower scoring, control the clock. That's been a staple for Pete Carroll. That's what he loves to do. That's what Stefanski does with the Browns. So kind of by preference of both teams, this game should be ugly.
Chiefs at Broncos. Obviously, you're playing all our Chiefs anyway. Look for them to play Pacheco. Pacheco's got a friggin' day. McKinnon might even get some points. He hasn't really done too much, but he might actually get some points. Look for everybody to get a piece of something. Again, you're looking for DFS values. You're looking, you're down to that last few $1,000s. You don't know who to put in because you overspent some other places. Grab some Chiefs receivers because you don't know who's going to catch it. I like Scantling. I like, just any of them. Rice, Tony. You talked about, them reacquiring Hardman. You can spend real low on some Chiefs receivers and maybe get some production against these Broncos. Obviously, Mahomes, Kelsey, and Pacheco. I really am heavy on Pacheco this week against the Broncos.
Oh, yeah. I love Pacheco this week. There's no reason not to love Pacheco this week. He will be in pretty much all of my DFS lineups this week, Pacheco. And I agree with you with that Chiefs wide receiver strategy. They're all super cheap in DFS because none of them are reliable. So with that last little bit of money, definitely agree with everything you just said there. If you have a little bit to add a Chiefs receiver, they have more upside than pretty much receivers on any other team. So if you want a cheap upside option, Chiefs wide receivers.
Absolutely. Don't play any Broncos because that Chiefs defense is absolutely awesome. And I mean, Sutton definitely might catch something if anybody's going to. I don't think the Chiefs are going to blank the Broncos, so somebody's got to.
Garbage time.
Yeah.
Give them the garbage time.
100%. Bengals at 49ers. This should be a good game. It's supposed to be a good game. It's always been a good game. Bengals got the bye week. Burrow's had a chance to rest. He was already kind of on the uptick anyway. I expect a great game here because the Niners are down. The Bengals are fighting for their lives, and they've got themselves a little space. Again, they've gotten a little healthier. I actually really like this game all the way around for fantasy numbers. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, it should be. And I think this is going to be that game that the Bengals, they've been playing better lately. But I think that Burrow is really going to have a good one in this one and remind everybody that they're still contenders in the AFC as well. It's still Joe Burrow. It's still Jamar Chase. Most of their struggles were due to the fact that Burrow was injured. The Bengals are that team that nobody's talking about right now when, we're talking about who's the best teams in the AFC and the NFC, the real Super Bowl contenders. The Bengals are not on those lists at all right now.
Nope.
They're going to be. They are going to be. As soon as Joe Burrow is fully healthy, as long as he doesn't get hurt again, give it a couple more weeks and the Bengals will be right in those talks. Playing a game against the Niners is an opportunity to do that.
I really think this is the game where the Bengals turn the corner and really just put the pedal to the
floor. So did the Niners lose 3 in a row?
It could happen. It 100%.
I think they do. I think they do.
I do. San Francisco's favored to win. I'm really not sure why. The Bengals defense has been doing enough. But I will say this: that the Niners have one thing that no one else in the entire NFL has, and that's Christian McCaffrey. And that guy is a force. And if you think he's not, check your top 10 list every week. Even when they don't win, he's still on it. That guy is just another kind of player. We talk about the values of running backs and interchangeable and plug and play. You cannot plug and play a CMC. There's just nobody like that guy in the entire NFL.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. Look, I feel like this is going to be a week where, again, the Bengals reintroduce themselves, remind everybody that we're contenders too. And I really do think it's going to be a third loss in a row for the 49ers. And then maybe it's time to truly talk about this being concerning.
Yeah, I mean, the schedule after that for the Niners, they've got this week. This week is going to be tough, but then they're going to go ahead and get that bye. Then they're going to play again with Jacksonville, but Jacksonville so far not the team, but they are on the uptick. Jacksonville's coming on. Jacksonville's turning on. Watch out. Lawrence is starting to ball. Jacksonville's starting to put it together. But then they play Tampa, at Seattle, a game they can win. They've got at Philly, Seattle again. So their schedule is not easy. So San Francisco, you might be right. It might be time to start wondering what's about to happen here. And they don't really have anybody to fall back to after Purdy either. Ravens at Cardinals. Ravens should just destroy this game. Play Lamar. I have been 100% against playing anybody else except Lamar on the Ravens. This week, I'm going to have to take that back. Play them all. Play Zay Flowers. Go ahead and play Gus Edwards. I like him against the Cardinals. The Cardinals.
I can't believe I just heard you say play Gus Edwards. You've been one of the most anti-Gus Edwards guys like this whole year. You finally come around on the Gus bus, which is strange for me to hear you say that.
Just this game.
Look, I mean, the Ravens are going to dominate this game as long as they don't do what my Cowboys did a few weeks ago, which is look past this game and be looking on to the next one and just assuming that they're going to dominate. If they're focused on this one, they should win by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, look, the thing that the Ravens did, and if they keep doing it, will open up Gus Edwards, and you might hear me say play Gus Edwards more than once this season, is they threw him the ball. And it opened him up to run the ball. And we talk about how you got to have one to do the other. You got to be able to run to pass. You got to pass to run. But by passing the ball to Gus Edwards, it really opened it up for him to be able to run this week. And that's why he ends up on the top 10 list for rushing yards, I think. And that's what they're going to have to do it against the Cardinals too. Cardinals actually have a decent run defense sometimes. And so, but I think they will do it. And it's that Lamar factor. Because you don't know who's going to run the ball. You don't know who's going to take off with it. And that helps Gus Edwards too. And I think this is a game that can help Gus out. Bears at Chargers. Will Fields be back? Will they stick with Badgett? Is there quarterback controversy in Chicago? Oh my God. No, there's not. If Fields can play, he'll play. And honestly, this could be another great game for fantasy numbers. DJ Moore in the end zone again. Deontay Foreman, play him. We saw Christian McCaffrey make the top 10 list in a loss. Chargers, I'm playing Keenan Allen every day. I wish I could roster him and nobody else. Like Keenan Allen is having an MVP year as well. Herbert obviously on top. We need Eckler back. Eckler owners, rise up. We need Eckler back. He says he cares about fantasy numbers, and we need him. We need him back. And the Bears are a fantastic team for him to come back against. They have no defense whatsoever. This should be a good game. It should be high scoring. It's a Sunday night game, and I think it's going to boost fantasy numbers across the board.
Yeah, this is a great fantasy game. I agree with you. I'm starting everybody in this one. I don't think Justin Fields is going to play. It's an injury to his thumb on his throwing hand.
We saw this with Russell Wilson. It wasn't the thumb, but we saw Russell Wilson go through this a couple years back.
Yeah, and when it's the throwing hand, I mean, it affects everything. It affects your grip on the football. You know, like he could be fumbling, he could be inaccurate. I don't expect Justin Fields to come back quite yet. You're right, fantasy-wise, this is a great game, but my question is, the NFL schedule makers, who the hell thought it was a good idea to put Chargers-Bears on Sunday Night Football?
I don't know. Maybe you got flex there. Was it always? Excuse me. I'm sorry. Was it always there? I don't know. But I'm down with it from a fan because I think it's going to be exciting.
If it got flex, that's even worse.
I think it's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
If you don't have defense, a lot of defense, I think you're going to have a high score. You know, again, there's nothing invested, right? I don't necessarily have to stay up and finish watching this one if I work on Monday morning, but I don't mind watching it. I think it's going to be kind of fun. I think this thing is going to be
though
fun.
I guess for those, weird conspiracy theorists out there that think that the NFL is scripted, I mean, this is the perfect time to have the Bears on primetime, right? With Tyson Bagent at quarterback. That's all they're going to talk about the entire game is Tyson Bagent and his underdog story and his unlikely path to the NFL. So if the Bears were ever going to be Sunday Night Football, well, I guess, the script writers win in this one because they said, hey, let's do the Bears on primetime when it's Tyson Bagent time while Justin Fields is hurt. They knew that was going to happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's one of the best commercials in the preseason, by the way.
Oh, great. I love it. Love it.
Monday night, the Raiders go to Detroit in what is absolutely sure to be an absolute snooze fest. It's not a Monday night game I'm really excited to watch. I'll probably catch the score. I look for the Lions to bounce back. They've done very well against teams that aren't contenders like the Eagles. I think the Lions again dominate this game. Will Jimmy G be back? I don't know. I don't think it matters. I think the Lions fire up. I play all my Lions in this one. I expect Lions. The Lions are going to help some Monday night miracles in this one. The Raiders, of course, are going to play Devontae Adams, and he could, definitely do something. The Dolphins still had the number one rush defense in the NFL prior to the Philly game, and really Philly didn't run the ball that much because they didn't have to. They were dominating on the pass, so I wouldn't be surprised they're still number one or number two against the rush. And the Raiders just aren't really a complete team. So, like I said, you'll play Devontae Adams, and that's about it from the Raiders if you ask me. And I really look for the Lions to give some people some wins, some Monday night wins.
Yeah, I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs is the guy I'm watching again in this game. He had a big week last week. That's obviously going to depend on if Montgomery can play. My gut tells me right now that he is not going to play again this week. They're listing him as questionable. They listed him as questionable last week as well when, it was pretty obvious that he wasn't going to be able to play. So the Lions will probably slow play it again all week until, in my opinion, they eventually say Montgomery can't go again. And against a team like the Raiders, maybe Jahmyr Gibbs builds off of last week against, a not so great defense, and he could really boom this week.
Yeah, I like Gibbs this week. I like I like Reynolds this week. I like Amon St. Brown. I like Goff this week. I just like them all. I think the Giants are gonna do it this week against the Raiders. I don't think it's gonna be that exciting a game unless you're just you really just like offense. But if you like one-sided games, I think that's what you're gonna get. But who knows? I mean, there's been a lot of games that people thought that, and the season has been one of those seasons where things happen that weren't supposed to happen. As we wrap up the show, We've given you some DFS picks. We've given you some fantasy picks. We looked at week 7. We've talked about the pulse of the NFL. We've talked about TSS Fantasy Waiver Wire tonight at 9 o'clock. I got to talk about champs versus chumps. I've only got last week's graphic because they haven't put out the graphic this week, but it's probably going to be that Sunday night game, champs versus chumps. Got to watch them every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Excuse me, at 10 p.m. Basically, this is what you want to do. You want to go over to the Fantasy Sports Corporation channel, the YouTube channel. You want to subscribe to it, and you want to catch everything they show because it's all fantastic. They play something all week long. They've got pick'ems, they've got start sits, they've got everything. And then while you're doing that, before those, in between those shows, while you're waiting for those shows to come on, while you're waiting for them to start, you want to go over here to Adam Hulse Sports. Let me get that number out of the way. Adam Hulse Sports, NFL writer for Sports Kita. You see there, he's got the Facebook, he's got the Insta, he's got the Twitter X, he's got all of it. He has some of the best articles that you will read about the NFL. He puts them out, like 10, 20 a week. Just keeps pumping them out, and they're all good. Every single one is fantastic. You want to go check out Adam Hulse because it will change your fantasy outlook and it will change your fantasy score throughout the season. Last one I got to mention is Wake Up Fantasy every Sunday morning. Wake up with TSS. TSS Fantasy every Sunday morning. I'm there. I'll give you the do not plays during the Dingus Fox do not plays of the week. Lots of other great fantasy advice. Fourth and flex. We'll have the flex starts of the week. They'll break down every game, talk about who's going to win, and let you know why. And of course, we've already done that. We've already done that at that EFIN show. Myself and Adam Hulse went through every team game by game. Check out that EFIN show. We're on the channel. We're on the Twitter. You can see how we predicted every single week. Again, I'm sitting at 66-40. Adam is 67-39. We are killing it. We are killing it. I'm going to say we are killing it this week or this season on who's going to win, who isn't. I don't know what else there is to really say about on this show. Adam, you got anything else?
I mean, hey, to be over 60% making those blind predictions on a full season without being able to factor in injuries and all of the other kind of stuff, I think we are absolutely crushing it on those picks so far. We'll see how it goes, though. We're not even halfway there, and we could take a nosedive at any time. That could realistically happen at any point, but so far so good. Way better than I even expected it to be because, again, we couldn't factor in some of the most important variables like injuries.
It was crazy. I mean, we made those picks before, the Aaron Rodgers incident, if you will. We made those picks.
Aaron Rodgers was still a Packer when we started that series.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, I think we've done pretty well.
I mean, by the time we got to the Packers and the Jets, he was already on the Jets. But, I mean, we started this a long time ago during the offseason. So considering that timeline, I mean, look, our records would be good if we were picking them on a week-by-week basis. Being over 60% on NFL games is already impressive, but doing it the way we did it, crushing it.
Insane. We appreciate you guys joining us. Hopefully you guys start calling in. We got a number. We got a number for a reason. Give us a call. It even ends in EFIN, 75759 EFIN. Call in next week. We'd love to have you on the show. Leave comments because we love to answer those as well. Keep tuning in. We do it every Tuesday with the Adam Hulse, sports writer. Go over to Sports Kita. That's Kita with a K. EEDA. Look up Adam Hulse. Get all your NFL knowledge. Come back for the show. I am Chris Fox. This is That EFIN Morning After Show. We'll see you guys next Tuesday. We'll leave you with some QB facts on the way out the door. You'll be able to find these on Instagram and the YouTube Shorts on the Fantasy Sports Corporation channel. Go subscribe because they got the best stuff in fantasy. See you guys next week. Be safe.